Hello, Paul here in Nashville, Tennessee. The proud owner of a Mantis 3611 model string trimmer weed whacker. And I got this, I bought the tiller and I liked the setup, so I bought the cordless string trimmer and weed whacker. And I had to do some work on it just to get it to be the way I liked it. Um, we have a large farm here, a lot of acreage, so I did not want to run the weed whacker with the guard on it. But they ran into problems when I took the guard off. And so I'm going to go through some of that and go through how to load the string. So first here we're looking at a picture, and so what you do to load the string is you take out two arm lengths of string off of your spool, like you see right here how you buy it in a spool right there. So you take two arm lengths, so that's roughly 12 feet, and then you fold it exactly in half, and that's what you're looking at here. And then I'll show you the other picture here. That's a top view of the spool. You take the spool out of the model 3611 weed whacker, and then you see that slot. So you fold your string that's about 12 foot of string exactly in half, and you place it in that slot, and this is the view from the other side. And then you wrap it around all the way. And you can do this with it in the spool too if you want, but it's easier, I think, to wrap it around. And then I place these purple elastic bands over it to keep it all from unwinding, because that string has sort of its own memory, and it just likes to unwind. And you can hook it on. There's places to hook it on, but I found that problematic also. So I took these big elastic bands. I think they came with some broccoli from the supermarket, the grocery store, and just wrap it around. So that spool's already full. That's why you see a little green string there and the purple elastic band. So I already loaded it, and then just took this picture. And so then you wrap it around, and then you put it through the holes in the slot and push it on. So that's it from the top view, and then this is the way it looks with the elastic bands on, and that's ready to go in the weed whacker. You can see the head of the weed whacker there. So that's how you reload the string. Now, directions are woefully inadequate, and I'll talk about that later. But that's the way you do it. And it's not that hard. Now, they sell a new spool. You can buy a whole new spool with .63 string. .063 is the dimension, inches. But those spools, they don't charge much for me. They're like $5. But I couldn't see buying a new spool. I mean, I reload the thing, a lot, and so I wouldn't do that. Now, the next picture I'm going to show you here is the guard. Okay, that guard is standard equipment on any weed whacker string trimmer. But I like to mow. I mean, I like to mow and do string trimming when it's wet out. And so what happens when it's wet out is that the grass will stick to the bottom of that, or the debris, and it'll get very heavy. So that's one of the other reasons I run it off. And the reason I like to mow and weed whack in the wet weather is because of allergies, and the pollen's very high right now in Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States. So, and then this is a front guard for keeping you a certain distance away from the objects that you're weed whacking from, and I don't like that. And then up here is a razor or a knife, and you have to pull the little black plastic off of that. There's a protector, but then there's a sharp piece of metal here, and that's for cutting the string. And so the way this weed whacker works is every time you hit the trigger, it advances some string, like maybe an inch or something. And that is quite problematic for me, without having, well, with the guard on, it's problematic because I grow organic vegetables, and I don't want an inch, 2 inch, 1 inch pieces of string being deployed into my vegetable garden when I turn the machine on. And the reason I have a cordless one is so I don't have a lot of fumes and exhaust in the going on the plants. And so this was quite a problem for me, and I was going to send it back for a new weed whacker. I mean, for a credit, but I bought it on eBay, and the eBay seller wasn't responding to any messages, and I was going to have to pay to ship it back. And I figured by the time I hassled with eBay and got my money back, it would be easier to fix the weed whacker to the way that I like it. So how do you stop the string from advancing every time you turn the machine on? That is what I'm going to show you next, and that's really the thrust of this video. So inside the weed whacker head, this is the head of the weed whacker looking into it with the spool off. There is this, I'll show you another picture. There's a slider here. That's the spool. That's the spool from the inside, and that's the other outlet for the string to go out. There's two of them, one here and one here. And so in that little thing, there's a button here on the outside where my finger is. You push that button in, and it advances the string. And that is the spring that keeps it from advancing all the time. And I put a heavier duty spring in thinking that would fix it, but it didn't. So what I did, and I'll go back to the previous picture, is I took a piece of rubber band, I cut it, and I rolled it up and I shoved it in there, which means that the only way to advance the string is to push really hard on that outside of the button on the outside of the spool. And so that keeps the machine from advancing the string every time you turn it on. So I'll go back and show you that's the elastic band right there, and it's just shoved in there to work with the spring so that when you push that button, it's really hard to push. And I have strong hands, and so I can do it. But and so I'll go over that in a little bit. So that's one slide, that's the elastic band, that's the other slide, that's the elastic band. And this is actually a piece of rubber, but it could be a rubber band. And so on the outside of the spool, let me see if I have a better picture here. Okay. So on the outside of the spool, there's a button. You push the button and pull the string. And so you'll work it a little back and forth, and it will advance. So every time you need to get more string, you don't bump feed like I used do on my other weed whackers. What I do is I push that button and pull the string, and then let go, and you sort of do this motion, and it'll advance the string. But the weed whacker is not very powerful because it's cordless, and so unless you're up against a wire fence or something sharp, you're not going to have to advance a whole lot, but that's how you do it. You push that button really hard and pull the string. And so one of the other features of the weed whacker is it has a computer in it that when you get into a lot of load, like say you get it, like the string gets too long, or you have string in it that's too heavy, or you hit a lot of really tough grass or weeds, the machine will stop. And you have to let go of the trigger, pull the trigger back on, and then it'll go again. So it's a reset to protect it from overheating and protect it from getting the motor under too much load. So the problem with this, of course, is if you're running without the guard on, you're advancing the string all the time, which puts more load on the machine, and then you have to cut the string and with the wire cutters or scissors, and then you get in this endless loop of the machine feeding string and the governor, this computer shutting it off. So I took that out and unclipped the wires and clipped it back together, and it's pretty easy to see which wire goes where. because they use the red and black convention, red being positive, black being negative, and it's pretty easy to rewire it. I wouldn't recommend that though. I mean, I did it and I like it that way, and I'm gonna keep the computer out. But if you put the elastic band in the head the way I showed you, you won't really have to do a whole lot of that, because it shouldn't cut out. It shouldn't trigger the governor. So, and then another thing I did is I took out right here in the handle. There's a mechanism, a safety, where you have to push this button and springer out, but you have to push that in to pull the trigger. And I found that problematic because I like to stop and start a lot, and it's not a chainsaw or anything, or it's going to cut your leg off. I wear safety glasses with this always with the Weed Whacker, and that's not optional. And so I took that out, and there it is. I have it. It's easy to put back in, and yeah. And then also, let me go to the next slide here. Yeah. So this is the business end of the Weed Whacker, and there are like 5 screws that you take out of here, and to get the motor out. Okay. But you can also take that Weed Whacker head off. There's on the top of the motor, there's a little place to put a wrench, and then you can twist this thing off. And so I'm looking for another head. If there's a bump feed head that will work, it's a standard metric threaded shaft that comes out. I think it's an M8. I want to say it's an M8. But I went to Lowe's, which is our DIY store here, and I looked up the thread and the size, and I think it's an M8. It's a standard metric size. So I'm looking for a new head for this. If anyone knows of one, I'd be really appreciative. And then here is the string. So they don't sell .063 string. I think it's 8mm string. So I've been using this string. I got it at Lowe's. I don't know the brand, but it's .063, and that works great. If you use .08, which I use from some of my other machines, the machine will not perform well, and it'll put too much load on the motor, and the motor will get real hot. And I've had some hot motor issues. And so I wrote to Mantis, and here's what I said. Okay, here it is. I am the new owner of your 58-volt cordless string trimmer and have the following questions. 1. What causes the string to keep advancing without my doing anything? This makes the string too long, and the motor stops until I cut it. I operate it without the guard. I need for it to stop advancing line. That was my first question. And then the second question is, where can I find instructions on loading the string? The manual is extremely inadequate. A video would be best. And then where do I order .0363 string? That's another question. And may I use larger or smaller diameter string? And may I remove the Mantis head and install a more standard head? So those were my 5 questions, and this is what came back. Hello, the trimmer guard has a string cutter attached to it, so the guard needs to be in place in order to cut the string to the proper length. The string will advance every time the trimmer is turned on, so in order to conserve string, it is best to shut the trimmer off, to shut off the trimmer only when necessary. I do not know who would sell .063 string. Mantis only sells spools and a part number. The only information I have is what is shown in the manual. The string trimmer cannot be modified to fit another head. So, obviously, let me just go through this. so you don't need to have the guard in place to run it. So that first sentence is false. And I've shown you how to run it without it by putting the rubber band in the head. So, you know, not shutting it on and off to save string is a bit bizarre. And then not selling string, and not even telling you where to get the string, but selling you spools. That's really strange. And the manual is just like, you know, like one paragraph with no pictures, very small print. And the trimmer, there's probably another like brand of cordless trimmer with a head that matches, and so I'm looking for that. And then for my 5 questions, they didn't answer the question about using the larger or smaller diameter string. Don't use anything bigger than 0.63 or 0.65 because it doesn't perform well, but it performs great with that string that I showed in the picture. Yeah, and I'm still looking for a head. So you know, we've done pretty well with this machine on my farm here, and I hope you do well with it too. These are the modifications that I had to make. Please put comments in the video if you find a head or if you find a better way to deal with it. I'd really appreciate that. And so I'll wind the video up now, and happy weed whacking and happy string trimming. Over and out. Thank you.